Hey everyone! We now get the Angular 2 beta here, and it's really time to jump into it. In this quick start video, you'll learn everything about setting up your development environment, about components, directives, data binding, two-way data binding, and how you get started with your very first Angular 2 application. So this is what we'll exactly build. We will build this nice little shopping list application here, where we are able to add items, edit items, and delete items. And we will cover a lot of the fundamentals of an Angular 2 application. So let's get started. Alright, here's my empty workspace. Now for setting up my project, I have got two options here. First one is head over to angular.io, go to their docs, check out their 5-minute quick start, and here I'll find everything I need to set up my development environment. But I don't like that very much. I'll instead go to GitHub. And here I got my boilerplate repo, where I basically set up or created a repository which, when I clone it, has everything I need to get started writing Angular 2 apps right away. So I'll do that, fire up my terminal here, and I'm in my project folder here. And here I'll just type git clone and then enter the link to my repository here. Once that is done, I'll open this folder here, copy all the contents I got in here into my root folder. Get rid of this one here, don't need it. And now I'll execute npm install to install all the dependencies and packages required. And once this is done, I'll see you again. So my installation is just finished. Now I will just execute npm start to start my live server here. And I'll just drag that over here so that we can see it here. So this is my application running. And now I'll fire up another terminal here and just execute gulp to get my gulp compiling going, which will compile my TypeScript files and my SCSS files. Now regarding the folder structure here, in my dev folder I'll have all my TypeScript files, so all the source code of my application. In the assets folder I have my SCSS code for styling, and in the app folder the TypeScript files will be compiled to, so I won't change anything here. And in my source folder, well, my, for example, styling will get compiled to. So I'll only work in the dev and in the assets folder here. Now, as you can see, I got my hello world text here running. And that is because in my root component, the app component here, I have this hello world text in my template. Now, this is a component I created myself. Components are a key part of any Angular 2 application. They are essentially directives which have a view attached to them, so something the user can see. And your Angular 2 application will be composed of several components working together. Now here, as you can see, I got a selector of app, which means I can embed this component in my HTML code by using an HTML tag, so to say, which just contains app. And I do this here in my index.html file, where I got my app tags here with a text of loading between them, so that this text is displayed in case of something goes wrong or it is indeed just loading. So if I refresh this page, you see this loading text blink up for a second. So this is my root HTML file, which has my root component, or at the moment my only component, embedded here. And this is what will be loaded when this component gets embedded into this file. Of course, just outputting plain text isn't that exciting, and we will change this in this video. Now, for this component to be recognized by Angular 2 and to be bootable, I have my boot.ts file, which just executes one method, the bootstrap method, which basically loads up my app component, so that Angular 2 knows this app component should be loaded upon the start of this application. So when this page is loaded, that is readily available and can be displayed on this page here. So this is the basic setup I got here, and that's the basic setup you'll have in any of your Angular 2 applications. Now, I showed you at the beginning of the video what we're going to build in this video, and therefore I'll first need a component which basically displays my shopping list. And I will therefore create a new component here, which I will call shopping list.component.ts. That's like the naming convention the Angular 2 team put out into the world, so to say, that we specify which kind of file or which kind of class is defined in this file. So in this case, we're defining a component. Just hit OK. And now for this to work, I first have to import the component package from the Angular 2, or the component class from the Angular 2 package. I do this by typing import, and then in curly braces component from Angular 2 core. This will enable me to give the class I specify in this file a decorator of type component. So to mark this class as a component. So to do this, first I wrap my class and I export it, which is a TypeScript specific thing, which basically says make this class available outside of this file. And it will be called shopping list component, so camel case naming convention here. And it won't include any logic as of now, but at the moment it's just a normal class. Now to make it a component, I attach a decorator. Decorator is something which is really easy to do in TypeScript, and which just adds some metadata to the class and which will basically then make it a component or make Angular 2 recognize it as a component. So therefore I add this add sign component and then parentheses, and in the parentheses I specify a JavaScript object with curly braces, and now we can give this class or this component some configuration which really makes it then a component. Because a component is basically just an Angular 2 directive which also has a view. Now here we want to give this a selector. So again, an HTML tag we can then use in the rest of our application, which should just be, let's say, yeah, I guess shopping list makes sense. And I'll also give it a template so that we can see that it was actually embedded by just writing this is the shopping list. Save this. And now to display this component here in our template, I'll just use backtick notation here. So these are 2 backticks, which allows me to expand a string over several lines. And here I'll just have this is the app component, and then I'll have my shopping list, which I just add by writing shopping list here. Now if I save this, my page gets reloaded, but we don't see the shopping list here. This is because I include the shopping list tag here, but my app component doesn't know what a shopping list should be. And just as I have to tell my app in the boot.ts file that it should load an app component, I'll have to tell my app component that it should load the shopping list component. And I do this by adding the directives metadata here. And this specifies an array of directives. And as I said, a component is a directive, which should be loaded in this application or in this component so that I can use it in the template, for example, of this component. So I'll do this by just specifying my shopping list component here. And very important, this import was automatically added by PhpStorm here. So you need always to import the components or the classes you're using in your components and classes in your files. So now if I save this, we see that this is the shopping list here. Now let's get rid of this. This is the app component. And here I get rid of this. And now let's output us a list. Now I'll define a property of my class here, which will hold some items I want to output on this shopping list. So we'll call it public shopping list items. And this is just an array of some strings. So let's say we have milk, sugar, and bread. Now to output these items here, I'll first change this to backtick notation again so that I can write on multiple lines. And now I want to somehow loop through this array. And here we will use a directive. So not a component, but just a directive, a structural directive, so to say, which will change our document. And we need some kind of loop. So the ng4 directive seems about right. So I'll add an unordered list here. And inside this unordered list, I obviously have my list item, and these list items, I won't write 3 list items, just 1, and I'll add the ng4 directive. Now a structural directive which changes the document depending on the condition or on the method to be executed in it, so to say, always has a star at the beginning. So ng4 is the name then, star ng4, and the star is very important, it's part of the directive name, equals, and now in quotation marks, I'll write the logic, so to say, the logic which defines this loop. And I will loop through all my items in the shopping list items, so I will have shopping list item of shopping list items. And now here between the li tags, I want to output the item now. And I can simply do this by using this name here. And I need to add a hashtag, that's very important, because this is a local variable. The hashtag in front of it specifies that this is a local variable which is only available within, in this case, the context of this loop. So I would not be able to use shopping list outside here, like here. I could not access the value of this variable here, but I can access it inside of the loop. So I'll just output it here, and I do this by using this curly brace notation, which is just the Angular 2 template syntax, or part of the Angular 2 templating engine, so to say, which allows me to basically just output a string. Now, if I save this, you can see I got my 3 shopping list items here. Now, let's say I want these items to be clickable, and then I want to be able to change their name. I'll do this by first adding an input field down here. Type text is OK. And then I want a click listener in this list item element here. Therefore, let me just structure this so that it's easier to read for you. I'll add a click event, and I do this by using parentheses, click equals. Now, as you can see here, we got the star because it's a structural directive. Here we got parentheses because it's an event. That's the kind of logic Angular 2 follows, that you can clearly see what this special directive is doing. And parentheses means event, star means structural directive, it changes the document. And later we will also see curly braces, which just means bind something to there or push some data to this element, so to say. So this click event should execute a method, let's say on item clicked. And I'll pass the item on which we clicked by just again using this local variable here, because inside this loop it is available. Now here I'll just define this method, which is on item clicked, and receives this shopping list item. Now what will I do here? The problem is I want to access this item in this input field so that I can change it. But I can't use this local variable here. So I will create a new variable, which I just call public selected item. And this will then here be bound to the shopping list item I clicked on. And now I can use that here. Now here we will use two-way binding, something Angular 1 was really popular for, to be able to both see it and change it. So as I said, we would use squared brackets to push data to the element, or to display data in the element, or bind the data to this element. So we need this because we will display the name of the selected item into the element. But we will also use curly braces because we will have events here, namely when we change it, that will trigger something, namely they will put it back to us, so to say. They will reflect the change in our list here. So we have both directions going on. And to do this, we then use the special ng-model directive here, which is necessary for two-way binding, and set this to selected item. Now if I save this, we got that. And if I click on these items, you can see they load up around here But as you can see, we got no two-way binding going on here. This is because here we got plain strings. Now let's make these objects, JavaScript objects. So I'll therefore create some objects which all will just have a name like milk, and then let's say sugar and bread again. This here will then also be such an item. Let's just define an empty item as of now. And now here we'll have to change this because now we have an object here, so we need to access the name property, save this, and now we get this. And now if I change it to, say, Milky Way, that is working. So now we get the ability to change our items on the list here. Now let's also add the ability of adding items to the list. So let me just add a button below here. And this is called add item. And it will also trigger an event, which has the name on add item. And the item will be this one here. I'll just give it new item, or just let's give me shopping list item here. This will be used here. So same name as here, but not the same variable, since we're in a different context. On add item, shopping list item. And now let me take my shopping list items array and push a new item to it, namely the shopping list item here. Let's save this, try it out by adding, let's say, honey. Now you might expect this to work, but it doesn't, because this variable is not bound to the value of this field, but to the whole input field. So in order to just get the value, I have to use dot value here, which will basically just give me the value of this field. But this isn't enough, because now we would pass just the string, but we need to pass such an object here. So to do this, I'll push a new object, which has the name property and this value. Now if this reloads and we now add honey, you see it showing up there. Now if you change bread here, this changes and we can again add it, and we can add, let's say, apples. Now as you can see, we also changed the name of this. That's why I'll just change it such that we have one input field for adding new items and one for editing the currently availables here. So that's the basic setup here. Now, last thing is I want to be able to delete items from this shopping list here. And I will do this by, let's say, just adding a delete item button next to this input here. So button, delete item. Let me add break here so that we get two separate lines. And this will again have our click event here, which executes the on delete item function, and it will obviously delete the selected item, which I don't really have to pass here because it is already stored here. So let me create this function here, on delete item, no arguments, and this will just use our this shopping list items array, index of this selected item, so we find out where is this item in our index, and then I'll use the splice function to get rid of this selected item here. Save this. Now if I click on sugar, I can delete it, and I can again add sugar here. Now that doesn't do anything anymore, but I can now delete it again. And this is how I can interact with this shopping list. And now this is your very first basic Angular 2 application we built, but it uses a lot. It has components, it has directives, structural directives, two-way data binding, and so on. So a lot of cool stuff going on, which will be the core of really any Angular 2 application. And if you're interested in building a more complex application, be sure to check out my complete tutorial series I got here in this channel. on Angled Hue. I'll be very happy to see you there. Have a nice day. Bye.